morning, everybody. Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. But what the compare did not tell you, and I think I owe it to those white uniform people sitting in the rear seats that they must know that I was also an NCC cadet like them, a senior cadet captain. I saw someone wearing those two stripes in midst of you, and I was fortunate to have represented the UP Directorate in the RD parade of, let me think, 40 years. I think 1985, if I'm not mistaken, or 86. So it gives me immense pleasure to be here in midst of you all, and especially, as I said, the sea of whites that I see here. Distinguished scholars, I'm sure there are many here, senior officers, my good friend Admiral Rajkumar, whom we have tread this journey together and reached here, and many other colleagues in uniform, otherwise, students, NCC cadets, esteemed members of the two organizations that have taken the pains to organize this event, the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, CENJOWS, DG, and also the Maulana Abul Kalam Azad Institute of Asian Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it's a very warm, very proud privilege and a matter of immense honor for me to be standing in front of you and delivering a keynote address for such an intellectually stimulating and forward-looking event that we are going to have over the day today. My sincere appreciation goes to the two organizing institutions for choosing this subject as the theme of this particular seminar, which is titled India's Maritime Culture, Continuity and Change. The title itself, I think, encapsulates all the aspects, the rich tradition as well as the dynamic new India into its title itself. As we brainstorm the very important subject today, I would like you to point out to one particular, a very physical manifestation of India's maritime culture, and when we talk about its continuity and change, we will see, but something which General DG CENJOWS had also shown you, a little different picture, a little different perspective. We'll talk about it a little later. But I have got a question. I have got a question to each one of you. I am not too sure whether I will get answers, but I would certainly ask this question as to how many of you have thought about it or ever wondered as to why the Indian Ocean, is called Indian Ocean. I am not too sure whether you have pondered about it or not. And many of you would of course say, sir, it's a name. And many of you would yet say, what's in a name? And that is what also said Juliet. Who's Juliet? Is there any Juliet here? Any of the ladies named Juliet here? No, of course not. Because Juliet was the female protagonist of the play that Mr. William Shakespeare had written in 16th century, long ago. Juliet is not fashionable anymore. Nobody has named Juliet. I am sure somebody has, but not here. It's not fashionable. But is Indian Ocean fashionable? Is it relevant? So these are the questions that we need to ponder about. Juliet also said something else, and I would like to quote. Juliet said that which we can call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet. Really? Is it so? If we transform into the context of Indian Ocean, could Indian Ocean be have called by some other name in the past, or would it be called by some other name in the future? Ladies and gentlemen, these are very important questions that we need to ponder about hard if we need to understand India's maritime culture, continuity and change. And that would be my endeavor, to let you stimulate it, to be thinking about it during the course of day, that you may be able to get the answers to these. But let's talk about name. That's where I started from. I talked about Juliet and I talked about an ocean named Indian Ocean. So we all have been given names. Most of us have been given names by our parents, grandparents. We also get some nicknames. I'm sure mostly by the friends, and some of those who are sitting behind, they would have current nicknames. I also have a nickname. I will not really reveal it here. But I'm sure all of you have some name. You are Tingu, Lambu, Fatso. I really don't know what all names your friend gave you. Also, sometimes we get named to do something with our character, with our inner feelings. And somebody is called studious, somebody is Khiladi. So these are the names, nicknames. But most of these names that I am talking about, you would be aware, and if you think about it, these names have been given by some people, somebody whom we belong to. Our parents, our friends, these are the people whom we belong to, we owe them. But what about an ocean? Ocean doesn't belong to anybody. Ocean is not part of any political boundary. Ocean is not also a part of any nation. Then who names an ocean and why? This brings me to the point that things which do not belong to anyone, they are named by people of the world. People who get to know about it, people who use them, people who have some stake in that particular entity. And if we extend that thought process beyond, a name is not easy. I can't call this college Vineet McCarty College from tomorrow onwards. Nobody will listen to me. It's got a name because it is accepted. Because people of this world know this college by a name. It has got an acceptability. It is just not that we can give a name just like that. And that's the point which I am trying to get at. An ocean which doesn't belong to anybody, it's called Indian Ocean. So who gave this name? Where did this name come from? Does it have acceptability? Does it persist? Is it enduring? Is it fashionable? These are the questions. And I would like you to have a closer look at this photograph once again. It's a little unusual perspective of Indian Ocean. DG CENJOWS had shown you one perspective. Normally, that's the perspective people need to have, because we are being told to look north. Nobody stops you from looking south. This is the perspective of Indian Ocean as well. Look at the names. I'm sorry, it's a slide from Google Earth. There are names written of all the countries on the sides of this picture. They have their own names. These countries belong to some people. There are citizens who have given this name. But this huge mass of water in the center of the picture is called Indian Ocean. It doesn't belong to anybody, but still it has got name. And that name is Indian Ocean. So that's what I would like you to ponder about. as we go forward as to who gave Indian Ocean its name and why. But one thing is obvious at this juncture itself, is that this is a name that an ocean has got. The only ocean that has been named after a country. And also, this name has been enduring, it has prospered, and it continues. So that brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about, and that's talking about the ocean itself. And the thing that I want to tell you is that oceans connect. Now, for a land lover, this is a very alien thought or an alien feeling. Because as land lovers, for us, oceans are deep, blue, huge divides. They divide us. They are the division between us and a distant land. Most of the land lovers see an ocean as a deep, dangerous, daunting mass of water, which is hostile, inhospitable, and even horrible for many of you. But to a seafarer, it is exactly the opposite. It's a medium. It's a friend that connects you with other people. Just think about it. Even in antiquity, and I am talking about some hundreds of thousands of BCs, even then there were ships which could carry thousands of tons of goods in them and go to any place, from, for example, from Gujarat to east coast of Africa or to Red Sea, within a week, within a mere few weeks' time, wherever the winds would take them. Try and imagine 100 kgs of spice. Anybody from Cochin here? No. Try and imagine taking 100 kgs or few hundred kgs of spice from the coast of Kerala to the coast of Egypt in Red Sea, overland, when there was no road, there were no bridges, and there were no railways. How would you take it? I suppose on foot, or at best on the back of an animal. How much time, distance, what kind of trouble? When would you reach if you start trekking from Cochin to Egypt via the land route? Even the imagination, even a thought of this is horrendous. I don't think it was possible. It is still not possible, by the way. So that's a perspective that I would like you to take. The oceans connect. This is a reality, this is a fact, that oceans connect, and Indian Ocean connects India. Indian Ocean connects India with the world. We know that because we have been practicing it. That's our maritime culture. We have been using these seas from time immemorial. There is evidence, and I'm sure we will be talking about that during the day. There is a huge evidence. There is local docks. There is evidence of India using the sea from the time of about 4000 BC, 3000 BC. We have our cultural imprint is there far and wide, from Egypt to Rome on one side, to the far and the Southeast Asia on the other. In every corner of the world, almost every corner of the world where Indian Ocean shores lap, the sea laps, India has got its imprint. So it is obvious that we are very much familiar with this connect, and we have been using this connect well. And that connect is largely about trade of goods, but not really limited to trade of goods. It is also about trade of ideas. So what comes next? And that's the question which I would like you to think about now. So when there is trade, and I spoke about how the oceans connect and how the goods move on the goods and ideas move over the ocean. So when there is trade, there is prosperity. When there is prosperity, there is wealth. And with that comes the competition, the contest, the conquest. Make no mistake, anybody who thinks about the blue economy and the implications thereof, please do not make this mistake of thinking that it will happen into a benign environment, a ocean that connects, a goodwill that is generated, a good feeling, happiness that comes along with it. That will all come, but with that also will come contest. And if you are not careful, it will be followed by conquest. If we can't ignore it, if we ignore it, it will be only to our peril. When thinking about this keynote address, I looked up some history and realized that there is not too much about the naval power in the antiquity in the BC. But that does not mean that India's maritime culture that we are talking about was devoid of naval maritime power, as such. Even Kautilya has mentioned elaborate administrative measures for the seafaring community, for the seafaring enforcement of law, that gives us a sense as to what kind of naval power was part of the statecraft. It was always there. And of course, a little bit later, in 11th century, we are all aware of the Chola conquest, the expeditions that the Cholas took to defeat the Srividyapuram kingdom, which was caused by the interference in the trade, but it eventually had to be sorted out with naval power. That's one of the examples of how to strategically use the oceans to ensure that what the country needs is obtained. And then, of course, we are all familiar with the Maratha naval might, which struggled and made sure that India's sovereignty, India's trade, India's coast was protected. Their struggle continued from middle of 17th century till beginning of 19th century. So these are some of the shining examples of our past, of our culture, of wielding power along with the connectivity of the waterways. A while ago, I said that we should not commit the mistake of ignoring the strategic dimensions of the seas. And if we do so, it will only be to our own peril. But unfortunately we did, and DG mentioned about it. We ignored the fact that we needed to develop and maintain strong seagoing naval power, not only to protect our lucrative trade, but also our sovereignty. The result was devastating. The Portuguese conquest of India, spearheaded by Vasco da Gama from 1498 till about first decade of 16th century, resulted in defeat of not only the most prominent naval power of the day, the Zamorans, but also defeat of India. A beginning of an end that resulted in conquest of India from the sea. And we all know that for next 350 years we were colony of the Europeans. This is a stark reality that we must remember when we talk about India's maritime culture, continuity and change. This conclusion is emphatic, as mentioned by Sardar K.M. Panikkar, a great historian, in his essay, India and Indian Ocean, and I quote, "It is an obvious fact to any student of history, and I am sure many of you are here, that India's security lies in the Indian Ocean. Without a well-considered and effective naval policy, India's position in the world will be weak, dependent on others, and her freedom at the mercy of any country capable of controlling Indian Ocean." This was true yesterday, this is true today, and this will remain true for the years and centuries to come. I mentioned, but at this point I will come back to the question that I asked you in the beginning. We mentioned and discovered that there are no Juliets here. There are no Juliets because it is not fashionable. This name does not have currency. But I will ask you yet again, and I am not asking for answers because I know you will come to your own conclusion. Is the name from where we started, the name of Indian Ocean, relevant? Is it enduring? I am sure you will find your own conclusions during the day while you ponder about this question and many more, but also as you go forward as a maritime conscious nation. I am sure you will find the answer, but I would like to give you only one example that I can think about it, about the name being contemporary, fashionable and useful today. You are all aware about a geostrategic construct called Indo-Pacific. Are you aware? I am sure many of you are aware. So this is a geostrategic construct, a spatial construct to define the peace and stability over a region so that everyone can use the oceans and for co-prosperity. Use the oceans for making everybody's well-being. And when the proponents of this concept were looking at an anchor, what did they find? Indo-Pacific. The first word in this construct is Indo, not because it was voted in the UN, not because it was planted by somebody, because it was the obvious. If you are to have a construct, a geopolitical construct that spans across a region and it is stretching from one end of the world to another, it has to be on a durable, acceptable, formidable concept of area, and that area is the Indian Ocean region where the sovereignty, the influence of India is recognized. I think this is one of the many emphatic examples that will tell you that Indian Ocean is not a Juliet. It was not written by Shakespeare and forgotten today. It was a name which was given to us, to the ocean, after us. I don't know when, but certainly thousands of years ago. And it has continued. It is continued for centuries. It is relevant today, and it will remain relevant tomorrow. And we must recognize this, be happy and proud of it as we talk about India's maritime culture, continuity and change. This continuity and change of India's maritime culture, the slide please, is shown in this slide. Very familiar slide for most of you. This is a dynamic India that has learned its lesson and developed a powerful sea-going naval force that is anchoring the peace and security of the region. It is a force to reckon with is ensuring maritime security in the Indian Ocean, whether it is against piracy or against other regional conflict that threaten the trade routes and the international sea lanes of communication. This is the change and the continuity that we should be talking about. Of course, the maritime culture extends far beyond the trade routes and naval conquests, and I agree with that. It encompasses shipbuilding traditions, navigational wisdom, coastal livelihoods, and marine biodiversity, and even folklores passed down the generations of maritime communities. Maritime culture is where geography meets identity, where tradition meets technology, and where strategic interests meet civilizational confidence. To talk about civilizational confidence, today India has a maritime vision which is firmly anchored in the doctrines of Sagar and Mahasagar, introduced by our Honorable Prime Minister. It builds upon our ancient maritime connect while addressing the contemporary challenges. This is the continuity and change of our maritime culture. Talking about the new India, I would like you to show picture of a stitch ship. Professor Parlurkar is here, he's a specialist in this, but I can talk about it. So this is a stitch ship. This is not, you can see that gentleman in this ship belongs to the 5th century AD, if I am not wrong. It comes from, its design comes from the wall painting, the cave wall painting from the Ajanta cave. But this ship is today modern. You can see that man in shorts and t-shirt. He is not of antiquity. He is a modern man. This is in Goa. This ship is another reaffirmation of our pride that we have and that change that we are seeing it through. This is a project which is being done in collaboration with Ministry of Culture and Indian Navy. This ship uses a very old technique, an ancient technique of stitching the ship together. These are the two photographs, as you can see, may not be very clear from, but these are ropes which are used to tie the planks of the ship. This is a technology which has been there for thousands of years. It was practiced by Indians, it was practiced by Indian Ocean, the ocean named by us. Next slide. This is how it looks when it gets finished. And it's an enduring process. The ship can go to sea, and it will indeed go to sea. Next slide. Okay, that's all. It will indeed go to sea in the coming December. This vessel is going to make a voyage from Gujarat to Oman with the northeast monsoon. So this is what we are doing as a nation to think about the maritime culture of India, the continuity and change. Similarly, there is another project, the National Maritime Heritage Complex. Artist impression you see, it's a complex sprawling over a large, huge landmass near Lothal, very aptly. Lothal is just about 2 kilometers from here. This is an institute, a museum, an ecotourism place that is being constructed. Next. This is the picture. You can see a naval warship grouted there right in front of it. So this National Maritime Heritage Complex is being made to celebrate our maritime culture and to remember the continuity and change that it brings. That's all. At the end, I would like to invoke Iqbal in respect of the Indian Ocean and say, कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे जमा हमारा, यूनान ओ मिस्र ओ रूमा सब मिट गए जहां से, अब तक मगर है बाकी नामो निशां हमारा. And I am talking about Indian Ocean. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, I implore all of you who are present here in this hall, in this August gathering, to deeply ponder on the question, why is the Indian Ocean called the Indian Ocean? Your indulgence and intellectual pursuit will not only bring answers to you, but to the nations and the generations to come, that what is our maritime culture, continuity and change. Thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.